finally getting to it. Welcome to Derry. I've been wanting to watch this show for so long, but I was just like behind on things, and then I wanted to watch Heated Rivalry now before this, so I'm finally getting to it, and I am intrigued and surprised. I just watched the first episode, and I thought it was really interesting. There were things that I liked, there were things that I am not quite sure how I feel about yet. Like, obviously, it's the first episode, so like we're just gonna see how things go. Obviously, I took notes as I always do. My first thing is the kid with the binky is gonna die so Maddie. I was like, the whole spiel, like, I wrote that down right when he gets into the car. I was like, oh, this kid is. Or actually, no, I wrote that down when he was still in the movie theater. I was like, they're setting him up to be like a scared kid. I'm like, this kid's gonna die. And then I just wrote next to it, just called it. So there's that, and that entire sequence was wild. It's been a minute since I've seen the It movies. I really like them. I just haven't watched them in a really long time. And so I forgot kind of how left field and insane they can be at some points. So the face that I was making during the entire car scene, because at first, they're in the car and I'm like, okay, shit's gonna go down, and then the girl like brings out the box of liver, and I'm like, okay, now things are getting weird as they normally do, and then it keeps going and going and going and getting worse and worse and worse with like the spelling and like igniting that like anxiety in Maddie, and then the like going back into Derry, and then the birth scene happens, and I was just like a little traumatized. I was at first a little, I would have taken it more. I thought it was going to be like an alien chest burster situation. I thought the baby was going to like burst out of her stomach, and I think I would have preferred that to actually watching the weird bat baby be born, because I hated it so much. And the way she like holds on to its umbilical cord while it's like flying around, I was mortified. I was like, I hate every bit of this. I don't like it. I hate it. But then after that, we get to the really cool title card, which is the very. I will say the effects in this show have been pretty good so far, except for the binky flying out of the car. I thought that looked kind of bad, and like the way it was floating in the water. But the title card coming out of the water into the sewers was so cool, because I'm like, fuck yeah, we're back. We've got Benjamin Wallfish doing the score again, and I absolutely love his composition for the movies. I thought like his composition for the It movies were really, really good. And so I was like, fuck yeah, we're back. We've got a great soundtrack going on. It's as good as ever. And so I was like, yeah, we're back. It's a cool title card. So I was excited for that. I wrote down Turtle Charm. So I haven't technically read the books, but I do know about the turtle god. So every time I see a turtle in anything, I get excited. So I'm like, well, now we know why Lily didn't die. Is because of the turtle charm. And I was like, you know what, Maddie did kind of die because he gave his away. So I had to write that down. Mostly I'm just like writing stuff down about characters because we're getting introduced to characters. I thought that the group of kids that we were meeting was gonna become the new like losers club, and then they all died. So I was a little surprised. I was like, oh yeah, Teddy's gonna live longer. He's like, Phil's gonna live longer. Susie's gonna live longer. And then they all fucking bite it at the end of the episode. I was like, oh, never mind. So I thought that was an interesting way to go. But I'm here for it. I'm curious to see how this show goes now, if it's gonna introduce more kids, or if like some of the other kids that we've been introduced to who are currently dicks to Lily are gonna be like the new kids involved. Like I think there's someone named Patty. Like I guess Marge is gonna be involved. And fucking Marge, she's a shit friend. Her and Phil are terrible friends. Just absolutely. Phil doesn't care about Maddie disappearing, and like Teddy I think feels remorse because he's like, we weren't really his friends. But like Phil won't even talk about it. He's like, whatever, he's missing, it's fine. But Phil's also just really annoying. I wrote down, I was like, he's he has the same energy as Eddie, as in like constantly spouting about the same things. So like Eddie always talks about, because he's a germaphobe, but he also has a fear of getting sick in general. And so like it sort of has that energy where it's like when they're in the sewers in the It movies, it's like Eddie's always going on about how it's like you can get this and this and this, and this is how you get this disease and stuff like that, and here's the things that can go wrong. And Phil kind of gave off that with his like conspiracy theories about the military base, or like when he spouts random bullshit about like the shapes of bras in the, I think this takes place in the 60s, so like the shape of bras in the 60s or whatever. So I thought that was interesting, but I was like, he gives off the same energy as Eddie, except I hate him. So I was like, he's so fucking annoying, and he's kind of a shit friend to Teddy too. But Marge is significantly worse, where Marge is just like, oh yeah, Lily, I don't want you to keep spouting this nonsense because I'm afraid of what people will say about you. And she's like, no, you mean what people say about you. Like Marge very much is like, I care about my image and not as much our friendship. I'm like, you know what, fuck you, Marge. So yeah, and then like Teddy's related to Stanley, so I think we're getting introduced to characters that are related to other characters that we know, or like characters that are similar or give off similar vibes. So like Phil gave off Eddie vibes, like Teddy's related to Stanley. Lily kind of feels like Bill, but not a whole lot. So I mean they're setting up different characters obviously, and I think in general it probably won't end well for them because we know that this is a prequel show, so like they're probably all gonna die by the end of the season. Unless there's a second one, I have no idea. But I got basically no spoilers for this show, luckily, so I'm going in pretty much blind into it, which I'm very happy about because I wanted to avoid spoilers as much as possible, so I'm curious to see how everything goes for that. The flesh lamp got me good a little bit. It didn't like scare me, but like the way it was done, where, because I knew from the light, I was like, something's gonna happen, but I thought it was gonna be like somebody popping out when like Teddy turns it back on, and not the lamp has changed itself. So when it changes to a flesh lamp, I was a little surprised and then a little bit grossed out. I was like, that is a sick lamp in both senses of the form. Like in the word, like that is just a sick lamp right there. I thought that was really interesting. I wrote down a quote that's like, we're here now, like when Phil, because they're all sitting in the theater and everyone's like sad, they're like, you know, we weren't there for Maddie, and Phil's just like, we're here now, and I just wrote down, bitch, he's dead. You're not here now, he's dead. Yeah, that was crazy. And then of course shit hits the fan, and I loved the last scene where Lily screams and then it goes into like the happy-go-lucky 60s song. I was like, that is crazy, and I laughed so hard at it. I didn't write anything about the military subplot, and that's honestly because I kind of don't like it so far. Like, I'm assuming some of it has something to do with Pennywise and it and stuff like that, but for now I'm like, the thing that I like about the movies is that it's about the kids. It's about kids being kids while also learning that they can't rely on adults, because that's the whole point of Derry, is that the adults are essentially useless and the kids have to do everything for themselves. And I guess this guy is competent. I don't remember his name, but like the major or whatever he is, he's competent in that sense, but like there's not much to it. Obviously there's an underground like aspect of the Cold War topic because it's the 60s, so it's like, you know, right at, I mean it's not right after World War II, but it's like 20 years after World War II or so, and so there's, you know, the threat of the Cold War, like fighting the Soviet Union and stuff like that, and so like there's gonna be some form of military topic with that, but I don't care so far. I'm like, I like it because it's about kids, so I don't really care about this adult and his military adult problems. That might change later on, but for now I'm just like, I don't care. I'm not here for that storyline yet. Obviously there's some underground component of racism within the military, which it's the 60s, that does not surprise me at all. So there's that, and like it is not subtle, at least the movies weren't, when it came to just like addressing topics of racism and homophobia, and I'm guessing that they're gonna add that into the show as well because it was a very key aspect in certain parts of the movies. So I'm guessing it's gonna appear here too, like racism and homophobia, and obviously there's something about like this specific project that the guy is working on that's going to be an aspect of it as well, but I don't know. But for now, I'm just like not entirely here for that plot. But I'm curious to see where the plot with Lily and I don't remember her name, but with the other character goes, where they're gonna probably form a new group. I know that Pennywise eventually shows up, but I'm like, give him to me now. I don't want the Bat Baby anymore. I don't like it. Give me Bill Skarsgård, please. So I'm curious to see where the rest of it goes, but I think those are my thoughts so far for the first episode. I like it so far. I think it's really interesting. I forgot how much I loved it. I kind of wish I had rewatched the movies before I watched the show, but I was just so excited to finally get to have the time to watch the show that I was like, nah, we're just gonna go head in, and I don't really need to watch the movies because it's a prequel show. So, but I'll probably watch the movies after I finish the show just because I love those movies. They're so fun. So, I think that's it. Alright, so I just watched the second episode. I also really liked this one. The intro slaps. Like, the music's fun. It's very 60s style with like nuclear family type of propaganda, like art style that they had going on in the 60s, but with like images from like the fucked up things that have happened in Derry. So like the two that I noticed was it had the Neibolt Street house, and then it also had the Easter Day massacre like little spiel, and then like little Pennywises here and there or other things. I thought that was super cool. I was like, this is a really interesting intro, and I really like it. I feel like we don't get a whole lot of intros anymore for shows, and if we do, they're not that fascinating to me, so I'm glad that we got one that was actually like really cool and fun. This is such a stupid comment, but like, I don't remember her name anymore, but the Major's wife like pushing her clothes off the bed is such a mood, especially when you're like first moving somewhere and you're like, I need to unpack, but I don't want to, so I'm just gonna like empty this box to get the one thing I need and then just shove everything else on the floor. And I thought that was really funny. You can kind of see through that scene and a couple other scenes that their marriage and their family in general is kind of strained. Like, the Major doesn't know Will all that well. Obviously, he had to get the advice for the telescope from his wife because he was just going to get his kid like something sporty, even though his kid's not interested in that. His kid's interested in science. And it's like, you can clearly tell that there's a strain in their marriage and there's a strain within the family overall. And like, obviously Will doesn't want to tell his parents about the bullying, even though we finally have a sane fucking adult for once that's like, you know, everyone else is like, boys will be boys, and she's like, that's bullshit. So I was like, a sane adult. And I think that's just because she's like not from Derry, so I feel like the darkness of Derry hasn't infiltrated their family fully yet. But like, obviously Will doesn't want to tell his mom or his dad about the bullying that's happening at school, especially because she's going off on this tangent and he just doesn't want to feel embarrassed by her. But like, she's such a badass and takes no shit, but like, it's clearly caused a strain between the three of them and stuff like that. So I still fucking hate Marge. Goddamn, she's so annoying. She's so obnoxious because she so wants to be friends with the patty cakes, but she's like trying to get Lily to also be friends with them, even though it's not working. Like, I don't even know if Lily wants to be friends with them. It's like Marge wants to be cool and she's trying so hard, but it's like every time she gets like the other two to get into something, like Patty immediately shuts it down because she's very Mean Girl-esque. It's giving Mean Girls, like the movie Mean Girls. Like, it's very that style and stuff like that. Listen, I don't need traumatizing birthing scenes in a show. If I wanted that, I'd watch Game of Thrones. I don't need that in this. I was like, once was enough. 2 is too many. And I hate it. We got to see the Deadites. Not the Deadites. That's Evil Dead. The Deadlights. We got to see the Deadlights because of it. But still, I'm not happy about it. I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much. Ugh. So yeah, and then Dick Halloran's in the show, as in the guy from The Shining. I was surprised. I mean, I guess I don't know. I isn't there a theory out there that like all of Stephen King's books take place within the same universe? So I guess in that sense, it kind of makes sense, but it's very odd at the same time. I was not expecting that. I was like, Dick Halloran, the guy with The Shining from The Shining, is in the show. So I'm curious to see where all that comes from, but it sort of makes sense now why he gets like special privilege because he's got The Shining, but at the same time, a lot of other people are like, we think you're just full of shit. So it's very interesting with that. I have a little note that's just Will is so precious. I think I wrote this down when he's in detention with Ronnie, and he's just so cute. Just he's so precious. He's like nerding out over science, talking about how, yeah, he may stink because of a stink bomb, but he could also be covered in stardust because it's made of the same matter that like surrounds that like are in the clouds surrounding, I think he's a Jupiter and like another planet, and I was like, oh my god, he's so precious and I hope he doesn't die. He probably will, but I was like, this is so cute. So I want to see more of Will. I hope him and Ronnie and Lily sort of form of a trio and just start wrecking shit and figuring out what's happening. I don't think that's gonna happen, but like I want it. I want it. And speaking of Lily, I blame her a little bit, but at the same time, like it's sort of fucked up for the chief of police to sort of trick her into getting Ronnie's dad arrested in the first place. Like he's very much is just like people are threatening his job, so he's like, well, now I have to arrest this guy. And Lily's also very afraid of ending back up at Juniper Hills, which happens anyways. So like it was essentially all for nothing. But at the same time, I don't know. I think it's just a very complicated thing. I think she's a kid. She can't really do much. And of course, telling people that she saw a giant bat baby eat all her friends is not going to do anything for her, and it's not going to do anything for the town. But I am hoping that like eventually she gets out of Juniper Hills and she meets up with Ronnie and Will, and they like try and like protect Ronnie's dad and try and like make sure that he declared innocent and stuff like that, because he is. So I'm not sure if that's gonna happen. I hope it does, but I really don't know through that. But like that entire situation where chief of police was essentially just like, if you don't tell me that you're like not sure that you saw Ronnie's dad there, then we're gonna send you to Juniper Hills again, which is completely fucked up. Which I also don't think he can legally do. I don't know. It was the 60s, so he might be able to legally do that. But I'm not sure. And then, oh my god, I am checked out of the military plot, I feel like. The Dick Halloran thing is interesting, but I find it fucked up that the general essentially tested the major by getting him attacked in the middle of the night to just test to see how he was, what his fear is like, and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's fucked up. And then they're essentially, what I gathered is they're going to weaponize it to fight the Cold War, or like prevent the Cold War from happening, which is, I'm checked out of it. I think it's bullshit. I don't like that plot. Like, I don't know if it'll change, but the fact, like, how it ends, I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. I'm checked out. I don't like it. And then I loved the scene in the grocery store. I loved the transitions of the shelves closing in on Lily. I thought that was super duper cool. And then like the faces, the It movies did this too, where it's like you'd see really creepy movements of like someone staring at somebody else. Like the first time it happens is when one of the grocery bagger guy is like staring at her, and it could be like, oh, it's just Lily Bainbridge, she's considered crazy within the town and stuff like that. But then it continues where it's like someone behind her just like turns to her and like tilts their head and starts smiling, or like the creepy guy who like tiptoes behind her at one point, and it sort of creates this like maze and stuff like that until she gets like trapped, surrounded by all the pickle jars to like essentially get attacked by her dead dad. And I loved that scene. I thought that scene was so cool. I wasn't the biggest fan of the CGI with the pickle jars, I don't know, it doesn't look the greatest. And it was a little odd. I felt the same way with Ronnie's mom, but it was dark, so I feel like it was easier to get away with it. But because this was such a high lit scene, it was harder to like hide errors within the CGI within the grocery store scene, so it didn't work as well for me. But it was still fucking creepy as all hell. But I loved that scene so much. That's the thing that I like about it, is the pointing out when a scene starts to take a dark turn of trying to figure out when it actually occurs. Like when it starts to get dark and creepy. Like, what is the first sign? Is it someone staring at the kid? Is it this thing or that thing? And I think that's what I really like about the It movies and now the show, is that it's like the transitions between we are in a normal world to it's about to get real fucked up. Like when Ronnie gets attacked by like a version of her mom, it's like she's, listening to her dad and her grandma fight, and then she pulls the sheets over, and then she starts to like hear what is essentially, I consider like her mom's heart beating, and the bed is shaking, and that's when you know, oh, something's wrong. And then she tries to move the sheets, and the sheets slowly turn into skin, and like that bit was really, really cool, because it's like, when does it turn from reality to, and it's not necessarily in the kids' heads, like it's actually happening in a way, but nobody else can see it. And so, like, when does it turn to that? And it's really, really interesting to see that between the two scenes that happen this episode. And I'm really excited to see how it continues throughout the show just from that. Like, I really like this show so far. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the military plot. I don't know if that thought will change throughout watching the show, but I did enjoy the rest of it. Like I said, I like the kid plots. I'm not here for adults. I don't care about the adults in this show. I'm here for the kids and what the kids are going through, and like what it means to scare a kid versus scaring an adult, because the things, I don't even remember what I was listening to. I think I was listening to a podcast, and someone was joking about how, like, Pennywise would have to become the culmination of taxes to scare an adult, which is hilarious, but it's like, we are very much less afraid of like, visual things than, like, taxes and the stock market and bullshit like that. And so I think that it's just really interesting in a way to see how trauma affects a kid than it does an adult. And maybe that'll occur here. Maybe we'll get to experience watching adults sort of eke in that fear as well, but because Pennywise attacks children, I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm hoping we get Pennywise soon. God damn it. I want Pennywise. Bring me Pennywise. So, yeah, I think those are all my thoughts for this episode. Like I said, I like it. I'm curious to see where the rest of it goes. Alright, I just watched the third episode, and there's a divide now on which storylines I like and which storylines I don't. Which is, I love the storyline with the kids, and I still hate the storyline with the military. I think it's so stupid. I think they wanted a reason to put Dick Halloran into the show, and I'm not here for it. Like, he's fine, but I just find it boring, because obviously he senses that something's wrong, and everybody else is like, no, but we could use whatever this vessel is to, like, help fight in the Cold War. Like, now it's confirmed that they are trying to weaponize it for the Cold War, which I think is fucking stupid, and it's gonna get that entire military killed. But I don't like it at all. It's just, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I do not like it. I loved the opening of this episode, though. I thought it was really interesting to, like, go through the whole, like, carnival circus thing at the beginning in, was it 1908, I think is what it said, and then him, like, Francis meeting Rose, and then I liked that entire storyline throughout this episode of, like, these two kids who spent a whole summer together where, like, she saved his life from it, and it probably told him about it too, which is why he knows what they're supposed to be looking for. Obviously, that's how they got the slingshot, is because Francis had it, and he's the one in charge of this project, essentially. But even when they're adults, like, the interactions that they have, because he clearly had a crush on her, and I think she also had a crush on him, But it's just, it was cute that it's like after all these years they like met up together, and he talks about how he doesn't really remember her until he came back. And as we know from It Chapter 2, that's just an effect that the town has on people, where it's like you leave and you start to forget what happened in Derry the whole time. So I liked that storyline between Francis and Rose. I thought it was really cute. I had to write this note because I forgot to do it last time around. But I cannot trust the chief of police because he's the same actor who plays the shitty insurance guy from Saw 6. So I just see that guy every time I look at him. But also that scene in the jail with Ronnie's dad was interesting because clearly Ronnie's dad is trying to hide something. I think he knows about Pennywise's shenanigans, and I think he was trying to possibly help his kid. I think he was trying to like save his daughter. But if he says that he was there, then that just gets him more in trouble. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure we'll go back to it. But I thought we were going to go back to it more in this episode, and then we just kind of left him be for the entire episode, which I thought was interesting. I wrote down a quote because it made me laugh, which was when, I don't remember his name, but Will and his friend are talking when like Ronnie walks through the school after her dad is arrested, and Will's friend is like, oh yeah, like he'll get a trial, and you know, like they'll determine if he's guilty or not, because you know this is a free country. And I think Will just goes, we talking about the same country? And I laughed out loud so hard, especially when it comes to the scene in the bar in the previous episode where the chief of police is like, yeah, we don't have enough evidence to arrest this guy, and everyone around him is like, well, you can come up with enough bullshit evidence to figure out a way to arrest him. And it sort of like circles along that. I have a fun little note that just says Pennywise, because we finally got him, yay! I was really hoping he'd do his little dance in his little circus box, but he didn't, and I'm a little sad about that. But I'm so excited that we finally have at least part of Pennywise. We have bits and pieces of him here and there, because he was in the shadows on the thing with him in the graveyard. It was like his arm and then like a blurry picture of him, but I'm like, we're getting Pennywise, and I'm excited now. I was like, I'm here for Pennywise and kids dying and nothing else. God, I love Pennywise. He's just such a cool horror icon. But yeah, and then I have a really funny point because I love the editing of the show, especially with this episode. Like, this is a slight tangent, but the way that they reference the flashbacks of Francis and Rose to, like, currently what's happening, because it's usually like Rose's young face like being superimposed onto her older face, and like the fade in and fade out of that, which I liked. And then we have it in a different way with a different editing thing, which is when Dick goes over to the Major's house to eat dinner, and he's like, you know, where's your son? And the Major's like, oh, he's at a friend's house, and it like cuts to them doing their little summoning a spirit in a graveyard, and I'm like, ah, yes. At a friend's house doing fun friend things, as in attempting to summon a spirit in a graveyard. And I just started laughing at that. In terms of that bit, though, I think that's my least favorite sort of supernatural thing that's occurred so far. I didn't like the design of the ghosts. It felt very Haunted Mansion-y. Like they were like Haunted Mansion spectators-esque, and I wasn't a fan of it. It felt too goofy for this show. It does a very good job of making things goofy but horrible at the same time. Like, I'm thinking of the Paul Bunyan statue from It Chapter 2. Like, that was goofy and horrible at the same time. Like, watching this giant Paul Bunyan statue try and kill Richie was goofy and horrible. Or, like, there's, I think, one bit where, like, Stanley's head turns into a spider and starts talking to them. Like, it's goofy, but it's horrible. But this was just, like, goofy and not at all scary. It just didn't work for me in a way. I found it just too stupid and too fake looking. And I think this is the one part where fake looking would be fine, but it just reminded me too much of like a Haunted Mansion, like Disney Haunted Mansion style movie or something like that. Like, I haven't seen the newest Haunted Mansion movie in a minute, but it sort of reminds you of like that looks like something that would show up in a Disney PG-13 Halloween movie and not a TV mature horror show in a way, and I was just like not a fan of that. And then shortly after that, I got so scared for Will for a hot second, where he's like in the, I don't know what they're called, but like the little area that like holds graves and stuff like that, and he sees Pennywise's arm and takes a picture, and the way that it flashed, obviously they're doing a fake out where you think Will is gonna die, but it got me. I was like, no, please don't kill him. That's my boy. You can't kill him yet. And then, like, he shows up later on. I was like, oh, thank God. I got so happy. I was like, yay, he's not dead. I was like, I don't think I can take that anymore. I mean, I didn't care when Phil died, and Susie was just there. But, like, I did kind of like Teddy, so I was a little sad when he died in the first episode, but I was like, don't kill Will. We've gotten too much of him. We can't kill Will. So, but I think I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think now this might be the core, like, quote unquote losers group that we're getting, but who knows. In terms of that, we didn't get a whole lot of scenes at the school. Like, we got the patty cakes looking at Ronnie, because, you know, someone wrote Hatchet Hank's got a hanger, whatever the thing is on her locker, but no Marge, so I'll take it, because I still don't fucking like Marge. So there's that. I have no, listen, okay, I've never developed photos, but I don't think you should be touching those in the chemical baths with your bare hands. That doesn't sound safe, but like they're over here like swishing the trays around and then like dunking it, and I'm like, that doesn't seem safe for your hands. I feel like that might be too many chemicals. Like I said, I've never developed film, so I don't know really a whole lot about the chemicals that get involved into it. But it was just a thing that I noticed where I was like, these dumbasses are touching those chemicals with their bare hands. Okay. So, and then I was also actually surprised that the picture thing worked. I don't know why, I just thought it wouldn't work. Obviously, it's not going to work in the long run. Like, they're not going to get the proof. I'm pretty sure that's going to fail. I'm just curious to see how it fails. But now we're getting more Pennywise, more bits of Pennywise, so now they kind of know who's behind it and all. So I'm curious to see what that has in store. And I am, in a way, curious to see how the story of the military goes. But I am honestly more invested in how them trying to find and weaponize it is affecting the indigenous population, because that is actually a very interesting storyline, because we know from It Chapter 2 that I'm not quite remembering the story, but I believe that the indigenous population was involved in trapping it in the first place, or finding a way to stop it, because obviously Rose knows something when she's a kid, and she probably knows something now. Like, she knows they're up to something, and it's not water pipes, it's they're looking for it, and she doesn't want them to find it. So I am curious in a way to see how that goes, but just the general overall military storyline just is not as interesting to me. And I think it just goes back to the fact that the thing that I like about it is that it's about the kids. So I very much have the idea of watching the show as I did when I've been watching the more recent like Hollywood Godzilla movies, where I get excited when Godzilla's on screen, and then I get pissed if I see a human. And in this case, I get really excited when I see the kids doing their kid things on screen. And if I see an adult, I'm like, nah, fuck off. I don't want you here. I want to get back to the kids, you know, being like, the adults are stupid, and let's get up to like hijinks and actually figure out what's going on, and, you know, have nobody believe us. But I do like the core group for now. I think they're all really interesting, and curious to see where they go from this, or if they like try to go to the police and it fails, or if Pennywise just keeps trucking and attacking. And I'm only on episode 3. I got 5 more episodes to go, so a lot can happen within there. But yeah, I really liked the editing in this episode, and I'm sure I've noticed it before, but sometimes like something new will happen with the editing, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I noticed it this time around. But I think those are all my thoughts on episode 3, so I'm really curious to see where that next couple episodes go.
Alright, we are in a new location now, so hopefully, because this is a place that has carpet, the sound isn't ass. And also, obviously, this is a new setup, so the lighting kind of sucks right now. I'm hoping to fix it later on. We'll see how it goes. But I just watched episode 4 of It, Welcome to Derry. I'm starting to like the military plot a little bit more. I have logistical questions about it, but other than that, it's starting to get interesting because it seems like there are actually competent adults in this show that are, I guess, in a way willing to figure out what's happening. But at the same time, I watch it and I'm like, yeah, let's go figure this out, kids. Let's go figure this out, adults. But I also know that it's obviously not going to end well because this is a prequel to the It movies. So, like, either they're all gonna die at the end or, like, everybody decides to move. Like, something obviously is gonna happen at the end of the show because it's a prequel. So we know that It doesn't actually die yet or anything like that. He can't be defeated yet because we know that the Losers Club does that instead. So I'm curious to see how the show ends. But yeah, like, we're halfway through, so I'm like, oh, here's some interesting things. My first note is that, of course, the ghosts no longer show up in the pictures. Like, I was surprised that they showed up in the pictures in the last episode, and then, of course, they bring them in, and I thought it was gonna be where the kids could still see the ghosts in the pictures, but the adults couldn't, but instead, it's the ghosts are just straight up gone, except for the picture of Pennywise. And everyone else is just like, oh, it's a statue. And they're like, that's a fucking clown. So I thought that was really interesting. Like, I'm just very much not surprised that the ghosts are gone in the pictures. It's like, obviously, it's gonna go wrong, and now they all just look weird. Or like the chief of police is like, Lily, that's another one-way ticket back to the I don't even remember the name of the mental facility that she was in, but like one way to get back to there. And then I have a random note because Charlotte discovers the pictures in Will's room, which like are obviously very well hidden, but she's like, I found this in your stuff. Like, I was tidying the house and I was like, no, that is straight up snooping, ma'am. Like, that is, I was like, why are you going through your kid's stuff? Like, that is just straight up snooping. That is not tidying. That is going through your kid's stuff. And like, yeah, he's been acting a little odd, but still, it's like, dude, I'm very surprised that he was open and honest with her afterwards, because I was like, nah, if my parents went through, like, obviously, like, a drawer at the bottom of my dresser where I had an envelope full of pictures like hidden underneath everything, I'd be like, I can't trust you to do anything anymore. I'd be like, the trust is gone. So I was surprised that Will was still willing to tell her stuff, but Charlotte's so competent that like it makes more sense. But even still, she's like, and now you're not allowed to hang out with your friends. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, someone's clearly fucking with you. Don't go outside. I was like, oh, she's so competent, and I love it. I love Charlotte. I just have a note. It's after the scene of Charlotte, the Major, and Will, and, like, Will goes upstairs, and Charlotte's telling the Major, like, you know, you should spend the weekend hanging out with your son, and he's like, yeah, I think I have an idea, and they go fishing, and Will is clearly super duper bored. I'm like, this guy has no idea how to spend time with his son. Like, you can tell even from the first episode, because he gets Will like the telescope only because Charlotte tells him to. It's like he tries to get Will a bunch of sporty stuff, and it's like Will's interested in science. He's not interested in sports or anything like that. And it's just, this guy is so fed up in his work that he doesn't obviously spend any time with his family, and his wife is starting to get done with it, but it's like clearly Will doesn't like to spend time with his dad because his dad doesn't really know him as a person. It's like low-key kind of sad, but it's just, yeah, I love the switch between like, oh yeah, I'll come up with something. It's like, and they're fishing, and Will's just like, so how long do we have to do this? And he's like, have to? I'm having the time of my life. And it's like, no, Will is bored. Will is bored. And then we get into my logistical question, because after Will gets attacked in the scene when they're fishing, Will sees the balloon in the water, and the Major turns and looks at the balloon, and so I got confused. I was like, can he see the balloon? Because usually when it comes to this stuff, the adults can't see anything. It's usually just the kids that can see stuff. But then he goes and talks to Dick and doesn't mention the balloon, just mentions what Will saw and what Will told him. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe he didn't see the balloon and just looked over to see what Will was looking at. But then later on, when Will looks through the telescope and sees Pennywise, and the Major goes out and sees the balloon in the tree, it's like, obviously, it's clear that he can see the balloon because he heard it, like, hitting the trees, and then he can see the balloon, so I'm like, so now he can see the balloon? I'm very confused about what the Major's witnessing and what he's not, and if he can see the balloons or not. I was just very confused about that, because usually when it comes to it, how I know it is that the parents don't see shit. Because it's all about freaking out the kids and making sure that the parents don't ever believe the kids. And of course, this seems like a fairly competent household where it's like the Major's doing something involving Pennywise, and the mom's noticing that there's something weird with this town. So, like, they seem a little bit more competent when it comes to seeing the weirdness that's going on with Derry. But, like, it still doesn't explain why Pennywise would allow the Major to see stuff. It makes no sense to me. I don't know, maybe it will make more sense when I watch the rest of the episodes, but for now I'm just very confused. So there's that. And then I just have, it was a terrible plan from the very get-go. The Lily's plan to use illicit drugs to make sure that they weren't scared. I hated it. I was just like, oh, want to know what we have as a good plan to make sure that we don't get scared when weird shit happens? Drugs. I was like, this is a terrible idea. And then of course it goes into the scene where she's trying to like take the pill out of the toilet, and I was just like, what? I understand, but at the same time I was like, nope. And then my note after that was like, Marge was up to something when she was asking Lily if she wanted to eat lunch together, and it's like, obviously she was. It was a setup to like essentially make fun of Lily, make the whole school make fun of her, which turned out better in a different way, because Marge gets freaked out by her eyeballs turning into snail eyes, and then the whole school sees that it looks like Lily's about to kill Marge. So I'm assuming Lily's back in the house that I'm forgetting. I want to say Eichen House, but I know that's not right. It's because I've been watching Teen Wolf at the same time, and they keep talking about Eichen House, but I know it's not Eichen House, and I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, there's that. I was just like, I was cringing throughout that whole scene, like the eyeball thing. I was just like, oh, that's weird. And then it gets to like when Lily's trying to stop Marge from like gouging her eyeballs out, and she's like holding up the thing, and I was like, oh no, this can only end horribly. And then it does, and I feel bad for Lily. I feel so bad for Lily. But obviously, like, that's her biggest fear, is going back to that place. So clearly, that's what Pennywise is gonna work with. So, or, like, it's gonna work with. Like, it makes sense. And we're getting snippets of Pennywise, and I'm like, I need more Pennywise. I don't want him in the shadows. I want him in front of me, saying time to float. And then after that, I just put down, I love Charlotte. That was the scene where she was essentially threatening the police officer when she wanted to go and talk to Ronnie's dad, where she was like, I'll make several phone calls because you clearly are not giving this guy his rights. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go, Charlotte. I love her so much. She takes no shit from anyone. And of course it like gives the Major a heart attack, and I'm like, no, your wife is a boss and I love her, and she needs to keep being a boss because it's great, because she's gonna get shit done. And I love her for that so much. She's like, as much as I hated that she went through Will stuff, she's such a good parent. Like, she's very clearly, like, she wants to take care of her kid. She wants to make sure that he's safe. She wants to make sure that Black people and colored people are safe in Derry. And she very obviously, from hints, has an experience of living south where she felt like she was not safe, and there's been hints that she was arrested for social justice actions and stuff like that. Like, she's a boss, she's a queen, and I love her, and I'm glad that she's continuing to do that. She's taking no shit from all these white people in Derry. It's great, and I love it. I have a little tiny note about how I like the planet mobile in Will's room. I just thought it was really cool. I was like, that's a cool mobile. I love it so much. It's very Will coded, because obviously he likes the stars, and then he's like staring at it, and then goes to the telescope to like look at the stars, and then finds Pennywise. But I liked that. I was just like, it's a cool mobile. I liked it. I like to imagine that like he made it with his mom or something like that. Like, it's just super duper cool. Oh yeah, and then I loved the sequence of Dick going into Tanya's head. I thought that was really cool, just like the process of how it happened, where he like essentially tries to use the like Mr. X hand movements for a second, and then like switches it and like puts his hand over his face, and then like that's when he gets into Tanya's head. And I thought that was really cool. And then the story was really interesting, and I'm curious, like, obviously I think they're gonna try and like dig up these shards, and it's just gonna make everything 10 times worse, I'm assuming, but I'm not quite sure. But I did really like that. I liked the part where young Tanya is talking to Rose, and then she sort of goes weird, and at first you think it's Pennywise, and then Dick's like clapping in the background, and you're like, oh, it's not that. And then like young Tanya opens the door to like show Dick where the pillars are, and then it's older Tanya after that. And I thought that was really cool, that it's like, here's the door. It kind of reminded me of The Further from Insidious a little bit, where like I think there's a scene in the second one where they ask, I don't remember any of the characters' names, but they ask one of the characters like where something is, and he like points to a door, and the door opens and it leads to a different area. And I really liked that. I thought it was really cool. It reminded me of the Insidious movies in that way. And then my last note is just of course the pillars are at the Neibolt house. Like, no shit, Sherlock. This is where everything is, which I find really interesting. I'm kind of hoping we get a history of the Neibolt house. I think that would be really cool. We might. I don't think we will. But I think that would be a really cool thing to get a story about. It's just, here's the history of the Neibolt house. Why it was built, how it was built, how the fuck it got so shitty. Stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, it's been a couple days since I've last watched an episode of it, so it was fun to get back into it and stuff like that. It's just fun. I forgot how fun the opening, like the intro is. Every single time I'm like, it's a fun, happy little song mixed with really horrible drawn images, which I find really funny. I was not horrified by any of the scares this time around. I thought the bug thing was weird, but I didn't hate it. I was like, I'll take anything over the 2 awful birthing scenes that we've gotten, so I'm fine with that. But I thought it was really interesting with that. I'm curious to see what happens in the next couple episodes, but I think those are all my thoughts for now. Alright, I just watched episode 5 of It Welcome to Derry, and I loved this video so much. I took so many notes. This episode felt the most like it. Like, they've all been feeling like it, but this one felt like it. And I really, really, really liked it for that. My first note is that after the explanation, it makes sense, but I was a little surprised that Lily didn't get sent to Juniper Hill. I finally remember the name of it. It's called Juniper Hill. But I'm kind of surprised that she didn't get sent there. But it makes sense because Marge essentially, in a way, told the truth, but not entirely all of it, saying that, her glasses broke and Lily was trying to help and not actually trying to stab her. So that was interesting, but I don't know, in a way I still felt like they would kind of just be like, no, she should still go to Juniper Hill. So I'm kind of happy for Lily that didn't end up happening. My next note is they have a conversation when Marge is in the hospital, and she's like, you're my best friend, and I'm sorry. And I'm like, don't give me that best friend shit. Like, you were going to prank your best friend. because you wanted to be hip and cool with the patty cake still. Like, no, do not give me that best friend shit. You two are no longer best friends. You just finally understand what she's going through. I was like, you're still a terrible person. This does not, her essentially saving your life does not justify it at all. Like, you're still a terrible person, and I still don't like Marge. I still don't like Marge. I really don't like her. And then, oh yeah, I forgot to state, in the previous video, pronounced Daniel's name incorrectly. So I apologize for that. It was just like the way that I heard it. But yeah, his name is Daniel, and I finally know that now. But yeah, I hate that it's true that the military wants to use the pillars to contain it, but they also seem like they want to use it as a weapon as well, because they keep being like, it's to, end the Cold War. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing to end the Cold War? Or like Francis tells Rose, he's like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. And I just wrote down, because he's like, I remember from our childhood, and so I've thought like we could use that and like contain it. And she's like, you want to put a leash on that thing? And I'm like, this is the problem with white men. Like, she tells you something in confidence and you're like, nah, I can take it over, like bury in to essentially forbidden ground, because that's where Pennywise lives, and figure out how to contain him. And I'm like, this is the problem with white people. That's a white person shit thing to do. I was like, this woman over here is telling you what not to do, and you're over here being like, nah, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And I'm like, that's some white people shit, and I don't like it. I don't like it. It's also some military people shit. It was just, ugh, oh my god. I was so fucking right on this. When Maddie shows up, I was just like, that's not Maddie. That's not Maddie at all. I was like, there's no way in hell that Maddie survived that. And I was correct. And I'm so happy to be correct on that. I was like, fuck yeah. I was right. That Maddie wasn't actually back. It was Pennywise fucking with people. And I loved that bit so much. That entire scene was great. I loved it so much. And then my next note is another theory where the Major moves his entire family onto the base, and he tells Will, and Will just has that look that's like, I'm so running away from this house, and I fucking called it. I was like, yeah, he's not lasting 2 seconds on this base. He is definitely dipping. And it was true, because they were like, no, you can see your friends afterwards. And I'm like, that's not gonna last long at all. But at least now, from that episode, it's like the Major knows that his kid is on his side. Like, they're both trying to fight and figure out the same thing, which I guess is good to know in a way. So, I don't know. I guess there's that. I loved the Nebel Street transition where it has the, like, Nebel Street sign on the TV, and then it zooms into the TV and then changes to the actual, like, street sign. I kind of had a feeling that they were going to do that transition because they kept zooming in on the Nebel Street sign, but it was still cool to watch. I was like, yes, give me that sweet, sweet transition. I need it badly. And my next note is, stop taking drugs. Stop taking drugs. These kids, where she's like, look, I brought drugs. We're going to take 3 each. And I was like, these kids are going to overdose. They're all going to die. Not from Pennywise, but from overdosing on drugs. And instead, they trip absolute balls. It's ridiculous. I was just like, no, I'm not here for the kids taking drugs. I'm not here for it. And then my other note related to Will running away is that he, like, huffs and puffs up to the observation deck or wherever they're at. And I was like, this kid hauled ass from that military base. Like, I was just laughing so much. I thought it was so funny. He was just like, did I miss anything? And I was like, this kid is sprinting for his life to run away from that military base. I do kind of want to know how he got out a little bit, because they seem to have some pretty tight security, but I was just laughing too hard to think about that. And then my next note is that they really just did not give Tanyel any kind of protection or anything. They're like, you can show up with your little shard, and that's it. And I was like, wow, they're really just leaving him out to dry. Everybody else has guns. Like, even a little bit of, like, head protection. Nah, he's in the clothes he's been wearing the last couple days. with his shard, and I was like, this poor guy. Just wrote down Ghost Uncle Sam. That's like, I want you. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It's still giving like Haunted Mansion vibes, which I was not happy about at all. I was just like, no, I don't want it. I don't want the like weird Haunted Mansion type of vibes. I don't like it. My next note is that they ended up making Polly's death scene sad, but I was too busy laughing at fuck that you can't rest to even feel at all sad. Which, like, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't remember much about him because I saw him in the previous episode when he saw Charlotte going into the police station and they like zoomed in on him and I was like, who the fuck is that? And then they mentioned him later. I'm like, oh, that's who that is. And that could be because it had been a couple days since I had watched an episode of it. But still, I was just like, who the fuck is that? And then this time around, with the majors going, fuck that, you can't rest. And I just started laughing so hard. I thought it was so funny. But yeah, wild death scene. I was so glad though, because that scene actually legit made me nervous. I was like, because from shooting like the Pennywise version of his wife, it's like, because I was like, his kid's in the sewers. If he sees his kid, he's probably gonna shoot his kid point blank. And then he tried to, but Polly's like, oh shit, no, that's actually your child. I can see that person. So well done, Polly. Rest in peace. You saved your friend from emotional trauma of shooting his own son. So congratulations. I'm sorry you're dead now, but Will's still alive, which makes me happy. I love Will. He's probably my favorite character. I was like, Will is a precious boy, and if he dies, I might actually cry. So there's that. And then I also wrote down that we finally get a scene with Pennywise, like a decent scene with Pennywise. We've been getting like here and there like little glimpse or like a shadow of him, but like we actually finally get to see him and he talks and it's wonderful. And I feel like I was thinking about this earlier today and I was like, I feel like I'm getting edged. I'm getting edged by Pennywise. Like they keep like this is episode 5. We're over halfway through the season. We're getting Pennywise bits here and there where like he shows up and then we get a balloon or it's like we see the deadlights or this and that, but like not like an actual scene where he's talking and he's scaring kids as a clown. And then we finally get that scene and I was like, yes. But I was like earlier, I was like, I feel like I'm being edged. I'm here for Pennywise, and I haven't been given enough Pennywise yet. So I'm so glad. I really, really hope after this it's just Pennywise nonstop. I'm like, give me Pennywise nonstop. I don't want anything else but Pennywise. I'm here for Pennywise and nothing else. All I want is to see Pennywise, and I'm so glad that we finally got him speaking and scaring kids and showing up in a really cool transition and then doing it again and then watching him get scared by a shard. I thought that was so cool. I was sitting at my dining room table while watching this and he stops and I like pinned it in a second what was happening and I just go, oh. My dad just looks over like, what the fuck? But I was like, it's the shard. He's scared of the shard. And then I was like, yes, it's the shard. So that was fun. I fear for Taniel though, because he doesn't have a shard now. We haven't gotten to anything. I was like, is he dead? Is he alive? I don't know. Is Dick dead or alive? Because the last time we saw him, he was looking at a dead Polly, so who knows? I think he was probably just like, fuck that, and watching the opposite direction. But yeah, I loved this episode. It was so cool. I like that the two plots are culminating together now. It's like we've got the military and we have the kids, and it's like they're after the same thing for different reasons. Like the military wants to essentially weaponize it, and the kids want to figure out what happened and prove that Ronnie's dad was innocent. And so like that way we can culminate it together into something. So I'm happy that we're putting these two plots together, and we need it so much. I think it'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here on out on that. But I'm just, yeah, I think those are all of my thoughts. I feel like I had another one, and I don't remember what it was. I feel like it had something to do with the shards. I mean, there's a thing with the turtle shell, and a shard being placed in the turtle shell. That was pretty cool. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. So yeah, I think those are all my thoughts for episode 5. All right, I just watched episode 6. I didn't take a lot of notes this time around. I was mostly just watching the show. It's probably one of my least favorite ones, and I think that's just because there was just a lot of conflict happening. There was a lot of infighting occurring within this episode between like Will and his dad and Ronnie and Lily just like distancing herself from everybody else because she's kind of actually going a little bit insane now. She's she's treating the shard like it's the one ring to rule them all. Like she gets nervous when other people touch it. She's essentially like, my precious, and it was wild in that sense. And I mean, there were some revelations that occurred in this episode as well, which is mostly what I wrote my notes down on. That, and then just like relationships with each other and stuff like that. So my first note is that Will should not have said that to his dad. The whole saying, you know, like, if I hadn't been there, my friends would have died spiel was a little low. But at the same time, his dad should not have slapped him. That was ridiculous. Charlotte is completely justified for packing her bags and leaving for that. She's like, you can say it's top secret, you can say it's for the US all you want, but all you're doing is spending all your time. And he has obviously been in the past, because it's hinted everywhere that he spends more time working than he does with his own kid. He doesn't know anything about his kid. It's like he wants his dad, he wants Will to be him, which is not the case. It's like Will isn't a fighter in that sense. Will is a scientist. Will likes science. He doesn't like sports. He doesn't like going, I mean, it seems like he doesn't like going outdoors. Like, he doesn't like fishing. He doesn't like doing a lot of the things that his dad likes to do. It's like he likes the stars, and he likes, you know, physics and chemistry and all that kind of science, and what neurons and stuff are made up of. Like, that's more interesting to him. And so it's very much revealed here, where with Charlotte, it's like the secrecy of the Major's job and the way that he truly doesn't understand his own family is like the last straw for her, where it's like she can believe him or not about the whole it thing and what they have to do, but like it doesn't make her happy, and she can still change the situation. So like her leaving and her being like, no, Will can hang out with his friends if he wants to, because if he's allowed, like, if you're allowed to keep secrets about whatever the hell's going on in the town, then he's allowed to hang out with his friends. And I do fully support Charlotte in her momming ways in that sense, where she's like, I want to protect my kid more than the relationship that she has with her husband right now, and I fully support her for that. My next note is just kids have weird relationships. It was like the dynamic between Ronnie and Will, which has been going on for a while, where like obviously Will at least really likes Ronnie, and I thought the interview with her dad was funny, but like it's very sweet. It's like he wants her to come help them, but like it's understandable, like she doesn't want to leave her dad. She, you know, wants to stay by him, and her dad wants to protect her, and he understands that Will also wants to protect her and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cute. But the whole interactions, and this just could be like Marge is getting better. I still don't like her, but like Marge and Rick and their really awkwardness, where he's trying to help her in different ways, and it was a little weird. They were just, I think they were up in their like hangout area at the lookout, and it was just super awkward, and I was like, God, kids. So there's that. But I will say, the one thing that's gotten me to change my mind a little bit about Marge was her using her scarred up eye to scare the patty cakes. Like, I thought that was hilarious, where she's like, I am a weirdo, and then like rips her eye patch off and stuff like that. And I thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh my god, that is good. That is funny, is what that is. And I started laughing. I thought it was hilarious. I really liked that. And then my next note is about the revelation about it using Mrs. Kirsch's father, like the Pennywise look, sort of adopting it, which I think is really interesting. I think it's something that was inputted into it chapter 2. And so I find it interesting that they've dedicated essentially a whole episode to it. I don't know. I'm curious to see where that part goes. It makes sense. Like, I saw Mrs. Kirsch as like a nice woman who, you know, maybe is, you know, just trying to help Lily, but I thought it very strange but that she, out of everybody in the entire town, was trying to help Lily, and now it's revealed that it's like, no, I think everything that she did was to just finally see Pennywise again. It's like she's probably figured out the pattern. They talk about it in the previous episode with the indigenous population, where like there's obviously a pattern. It's like the kids go missing, and then the town gets angry and something horrible happens, and then Pennywise, or like it, goes into hiding again for the next 27 years. And with this one, it's like she is trying to get Lily to bring Pennywise out so she can see him, and then she's obviously the one that tipped off the police chief about where Ronnie's dad is, because he's like, a lady tipped us off, and she's the only person besides, well, she's the only person who would probably talk to the cops about Ronnie's dad that know where he's at, and so was probably just like, yeah, their whole, she's probably honestly the one that gave off the tip at the beginning that he was seen near the movie theater, even though he wasn't. Like, she was probably the one that did that tip as well, just to like fuck with him and obviously create what is eventually going to become this like actual lynch mob that goes after Ronnie, and is probably Ronnie's dad, and is probably the culmination of like whatever big horrible thing happens to Derry this time around. So I thought that was interesting, but my question to that is, I mean, we understand sort of why it chooses a clown, because it's like kids either love clowns or they hate them. And with clowns, it's like a kid can trust Pennywise and therefore get lured in by him, and then the fear takes over, or they're just straight up absolutely terrified of Pennywise, and then he's just automatically feeding off their fear. And so I understand why he chooses clowns, but like why specifically Mrs. Kirsch's dad, I found interesting. Like why that look? Why? I mean, maybe it's like it had never seen a clown before and then saw this clown and got the idea from it. That could be interesting. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll get an explanation. I don't think so. My next note is about the entire like speakeasy scene. So like obviously the weird coke that the kids were given is alcohol. I wrote down, I was like, don't give these kids alcohol. Like, I see the way he like turns around and you see the bottle, I was like, that's not a Coke. That's not a Coke. And then they drink and they're like, it tastes weird. And I'm like, yep, because it's probably alcohol. So these kids have alcohol, and then the entire thing, which just felt like a fever dream, because after that they're like hanging out around everybody dancing. Will comes out, and then one of the band members like notices that Rick has like drumsticks and is like, hey, Sticks, how do you know how to play a set? And then he goes and he plays this drum set, and I was like, this entire scene of like going up to a kid with drumsticks in his pocket feels like a scene from a Disney show and not from a show about a clown killing children. It felt very much a fever dream, but I guess it was sort of like the calm before the storm. Like, everyone's really happy, like Rick's killing it on this drum set, like everyone's dancing, they're having a good time, they're like rooting for this really good drum player, stuff like that, and then all the white people show up and you're like, oh, I am not looking forward to next episode, because I know it's not going to be good, because we know, at least from it chapter 2, that they will put extremely triggering scenes into this franchise. So I'm not looking forward to whatever lynch mob things occur, because it will probably be horrifying. I wrote down that the prospect of the lynch mob is probably the most horrifying thing in the show. So I was like, yeah, Pennywise is fake. Lynches are real, and that is terrifying, and I don't want to watch it. But I'm going to, and I'm not going to look forward to it. So, yeah, those are all my notes. I don't... I'd say I'd look forward to next episode, but I'm not. I'm like, it's going to be a tough watch. Whatever occurs, I know it's going to be really, really tough to watch, and I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm gonna watch it because I really want to finish this show, because I do like this show overall. It's been a really, really good show. I really enjoy it. I like the vibes that it's giving and stuff like that, but I'm not looking forward to the horrible, horrible racism that is going to occur. I'm not excited for it. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts for now. Alright, I just watched episode 7, and this was a tough episode to watch. I knew it was gonna be tough, but it still didn't make it any better. Like, it was hard to watch and incredibly frustrating towards the end to see. It gave us more context on it. So I think I had a theory last time around that it, like, the Thing wanted to choose Pennywise because he's a clown and he both, like, lures and scares children, and that theory was correct. It's like because the Thing disguises itself as a child and is like, you lured these kids, like, they were really drawn to you. So Pennywise decides to eat Pennywise and then take on that form as Pennywise, like, permanently, as a way to sort of lure in kids but also scare kids at the same time, because, like I said for episode 6, I think, like, you either like clowns or you're terrified of them. I feel like there's no in between, and Pennywise works really well as, like, a cool clown or a really creepy clown, so it kind of works with that. So I'm kind of glad that, like, I was kind of correct on that. Also, why Mrs. Kirsch, like, wants to find Pennywise, because she's so convinced that that's still her dad, which I found really interesting. She's just, like, completely okay with the prospect of her dad possibly killing and eating children. And never aging too. I find it odd, but I'm like, okay, she's just incredibly delusional. So there's that, and then we get into the lynch scene, which, first off, it's kind of stupid for all those white people to walk into a speakeasy that's full of military personnel and not expect that there to be people with guns there. I was like, that's fucking stupid of them. But the moment that the former chief of police says, okay, we're gonna leave, I was like, oh no, they're gonna burn the place down. And then they did, and that scene just kept going, which it was supposed to. Like, it did what it was supposed to, which was make that scene scary. Like, lock everybody inside, burn the place down, and watch just the chaos ensue of it all, of people running around, people getting shot by the mob outside, like Pennywise showing up, because of course he's gonna show up to that. Like, that's, this is the culmination of, like, the angry shitstorm that usually occurs when the time span is, like, almost up, is like, or was it amalgamation, I think the indigenous population calls it, like, when, he's eating kids and eating kids and eating kids, and then eventually something horrible absolutely happens, and it's like, this is what it is. It's this sort of divide between white people and black people, specifically around Hank Grogan. But it's like, at this point, Hank Grogan's an excuse. Like, he's not the reason anymore. He's just an excuse to cause this, like, racial divide of what's going on with people in Derry being like, oh, we're not the South, we're not that bad. And it's like, no, you still kind of are. Like, you still, like, you can see it when Leroy and his family move into their house. It's like, they're clearly the only black family on the street. They clearly still get a bunch of stares from everybody. It's like, there's still a racial divide there. They constantly talk on the radio about how this is still during the civil rights movement. Like, black people don't have the right to vote yet, which, like, in our modern times, that seems uncalled for. But then it's like, like, people didn't have the right to vote then, and stuff like that. Or I think the general later on in the episode is like, you know, the women's movement and the race divide and stuff like that. And I'm like, this fucking white guy, this white man needs to shut the fuck up. But yeah, that entire scene was incredibly rough, and it went for so long. And I will applaud Dick for sort of getting past his fear of opening up the floodgates for the dead and being like, I need to contact the dead to at least save other people. Like, he tries to go down by himself, and then he realizes, like, there are kids in this building. That's probably a really shitty thing to do. So at least he attempts to save all the kids. I'm so mad about Rich dying. I'm so fucking mad about that. I loved Rich. I still don't like Marge. I feel bad for her, but Rich was so funny, and he was so cute, and the fact that, like, he died that way was even worse. Like, I think at one point I would have hoped that the ceiling came down on him, because suffocating to death from smoke sounds awful. And the fact that that is how he died is just absolutely terrible, and I hate it so much. Like, that was also the reason why that entire segment was so rough to watch, is because I was like, I really like Rich, and he's so he's so headstrong in saving Marge. I was like, no, get in the chest, get in the cover, whatever the fuck it is, get in the thing, you both can fit, damn it. That's my Titanic board they both could fit thing, although clearly they couldn't. Like, you could kind of tell it's like they clearly couldn't, but still, I'm mad about it. I was right on Mrs. Kirsch tipping off the cops of Hank's whereabouts. I was so right on that when she shows up and she's like, I knew that if I told them where Hank was and they showed up, you would come and stuff like that. But she truly is delusional, because I also wrote down, I was like, she's so gonna die from, like, talking to Pennywise and I technically was not correct on that, because she got deadlighted, but I don't think you technically die from that, because what was it? Like, I think you just kind of go a little crazy a little bit, unless Pennywise chooses to kill you, because Will got the deadlights at the end of the episode, which I was like, fuck. But I think in terms of her, because she, like, moved her eyes towards the kids when she was being wheeled out, that, like, she's still alive. She's probably gonna, like, get possessed and go on a weird killing spree. That's how I'm assuming that's gonna happen, is that she's gonna go on a weird killing spree or something like that. So, but I totally called it. I was like, she's so delusional. Like, I think that truly confirmed that she did think that it was her dad, and then she sort of realizes, she's like, oh, that actually isn't my dad. That's a thing wearing my dad's skin. So there's that. I wrote a note about how Leroy is just way too calm about this entire situation. He's blaming, like, Pennywise, like, the thing. And I think, in a way, Pennywise is partially responsible for what occurred at the speakeasy, but not entirely. Like, he's way too calm about that. It's like, this isn't just about that. This is also about the racial divide that is occurring in this town right now, and how incredibly horrible it's becoming. Like, it's not just about that. Like, you can't be calm and say that once you're done with this project, everything will be fine. Like, that is not at all the case. It's not true at all. Like, it's just not true. Like, you're just way too calm. It's not gonna work out. And I found that incredibly frustrating. I was like, well, now you're just delusional, Leroy. Like, this is not what's happening. It's like, your son almost died from a lynch mob setting a building on fire, and you're gonna blame the spectral thing from outer space instead of the entire mob of white people that came to kill one man and left with, like, I don't know, probably like 20 bodies were probably in that building who died, including a child, an actual child. Like, that is insane. That he's like, no, like, once we cage Pennywise in a smaller cage, everything will be fine. It's like, that is not the case. There is clearly an issue going around, and it's not just Pennywise's fault, and I just found that incredibly frustrating from him, which, like, made this episode even more tough to watch because of it. After that, I wrote down that, of course, they blame the people in the building who died for what happened. Like, that, I found that so frustrating. Like, on the radio when they're talking about it, where they blame an electrical issue, they don't talk about how, like, people came and burned the building down. They probably have, you know, because there were like 4 or 5 people, I think, who survived who they could actually interview, and instead they're like, no, it was an electrical issue from an illegal speakeasy, and, you know, the butcher Stanley was the hero, and we're so glad we're so sad that he's dead. And it's just like, clearly this is not just a Pennywise thing. Like, it is a racial injustice thing. Like, these fucking white people are the problem. And I found that so frustrating. I was like, of course they're gonna blame the people of color for what was happening instead of the white people who actually caused the fire in the first place. I found that incredibly frustrating. Am I surprised? Unfortunately, no. But it doesn't make it any easier to watch. So there's that. On a happier note, when we get to Rose describing that Pennywise has gone back to sleep, we cut to Tanya, and Tanya, and I got very excited that Tanya lived, because he just kind of like booked it in the previous episode and we didn't see if he lived or not. So I saw him and I was like, yes, he's still alive. Yay. I really like Tanya. I don't know why. I was just like, he's cool, he seems chill, I like him. So I was like, yay, he's alive. So I got really happy about that. And then we get to the second part of this frustrating thing, which is, of course, caging in Pennywise was not the original plan. It was essentially to set him free, to in a way weaponize him, but not for the Cold War. It's to end social injustice in America, which I call bullshit on. So I hated that entire spiel. Like, they take the shard to the base, which just puts the base in jeopardy. Like, now the base is completely in jeopardy of being attacked by Pennywise. So there's that. Like, that's stupid decision number one. And stupid decision number two, like, I understand why Leroy did it, but him pointing a gun in a military base at a bunch of other people was not the way to go, where he's like, put it down. I'm like, he's gonna get himself killed. I'm surprised that they just didn't straight up kill him. I'm kind of surprised about that. But then obviously afterwards, like after Leroy leaves, Francis is like, okay, Leroy's not allowed to leave the base at all, which, like, it makes sense. Obviously they don't want him to go to somebody else to talk about what's actually going on. Which I found so frustrating. And then I just wrote a note that just says, fuck off, Francis. Racism does not equal calm. Because he's like, yeah, like, last night was terrible, but now the town's so calm. It's like, yeah, because you killed a whole bunch of black people. There's less black people in the town. I was just like, oh my god. This is the problem with white men. They fucking suck. I was like, especially Francis. Like, Francis is awful, because you get an indigenous woman to trust you about something that's very important to her tribe, where she's like, this is the thing that we've been keeping at bay for centuries. And then he's like, no, we're gonna militarize it. We're gonna essentially, like, use multiple people of color to find this thing and retrieve a shard that traps this thing, and then we're gonna use it to essentially break a barrier and get Pennywise to just wreak havoc on the US, which is insane. It's ridiculous, and I hate it, and I'm not happy about it. I'm just, oh my god. Oh, I was like, this is the problem with white people, white military men. I'm so mad. I hated it so much. It was just, that was what made this episode frustrating. Like, the first half was just hard to watch, and the second half just pissed me the fuck off. I was like, I'm not surprised, but I'm still mad about it, and that's what I hate. I was just like, I'm not surprised that the military was lying to Leroy, and that all of this is a bunch of bullshit, but I'm still mad about it. So, and then Pennywise takes Will, and I'm like, my baby boy. I was like, first off, you take Rich from me. Now I'm upset, and now you're taking Will. Will gets lighted, and now I'm just mad. I'm like, don't you dare. Obviously, they're gonna try and rescue him, but like, I really don't know how the last episode is gonna end. I think full shit is gonna go down at the military base. I think that thing's gonna get completely destroyed by Pennywise, and then I don't know what's gonna happen with the kids. I hope they live. I don't think they will, because we know this isn't where he gets defeated. we know that doesn't happen for another 27 years, kind of, and then another 27 years after that. So I'm curious to see, but also really scared. But I think those are all my thoughts for episode 7. This episode was so tough and frustrating to watch, so I'm hoping that I don't get as angry with episode 8, but I feel like I will. Alright, I just watched the 8th and final episode of It Welcome to Derry. I took a lot of notes. I really liked this episode. I thought it was really interesting. I liked how it ended. I liked the tie-in to the movies that it had, which I thought was really, really cool. My first note is just the fog. As like the fog starts to roll in, it was kind of cool, but a little strange at the same time. Kind of reminded me of Frozen for some reason, like when Elsa's powers start to go out of hand and the like fog and the winter kicks in and everything starts to freeze. It just kind of reminded me of that. So random thought. Oh yeah, I just wrote down that's how you start a show. And I wrote that note for when the kids are asked to go into the auditorium and Pennywise does the little puppet hand show with the principal and then kills him and then deadlights all the kids. It was so good. Like, I loved it. I was like, this is this is the Pennywise that I wanted. This is the Pennywise that I needed, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed that. And then I have a comment about Marge where she says, I want to kill that fucking clown. I absolutely loved that line. We're gonna get back to that line later, but I absolutely love that line. I started laughing. I was like, hell yeah, this is giving Richie. Wink. So I really liked that. And then I have another that just says nothing like kids driving cars. And Marge did surprisingly well driving that car. I was very impressed by that. I was like, it sort of reminds me of Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is so Stephen King coded, and it makes sense. But like, was it Max driving Steve's car and stuff like that? It reminds me of that, and just like, you know, kids driving cars for some reason in movies and shows. And then I did write down that the dagger is the One Ring, where like Lily goes a little crazy and they're like, we have to switch off and on who carries it. And I was like, so it's a Horcrux or it's the One Ring. I'm gonna say it's the One Ring because that feels more accurate, because it's more of like my precious kind of thing than just turning me into a bitch kind of thing. So I thought that was really interesting. I loved the part where Pennywise was like circling around them on the river and like fucking with them. I enjoyed that scene so much because it's like, I mean, you look at Pennywise and I think if I ever saw Pennywise in real life and he tried to attack me, I'd be scared, but I think I'd be even more terrified if he just started circling me, because it sort of goes off to like the wolf thing where like when the actual Pennywise, like Robert, goes missing, they talk about how they think it's wolves that killed him, and so he's circling the kids like a wolf, like a pack of like a pack of wolves, like circling their prey. And I thought that was really interesting, and I really liked it. And then now we can go back to Marge and the whole revelation that Marge is Richie's mom, which I thought was really interesting. And after hearing that, I was like, okay, she's very Richie coded. Like, her saying, I want to kill that fucking clown, especially like not at the beginning of the show, but at the end of the show, like the last 2 to 3 episodes, she very much acts a little bit more on the side of Richie Tozier. So it makes more sense now. I was a little drawn back though. I was like, what? But I I'm here for it. I was like, that's another point to Marge. I like her a little bit more now to know that she's Richie's mom. But I thought that was really interesting to like bring in that being like, one day you're gonna have a son and he's gonna kill me. And so I really liked that part. And then it took me, I think during the funeral, to realize that she probably named Richie after Rich, which I thought was really interesting and also really cute. That, she had this friend who she had a crush on, who essentially saved her life, and she decided to name her own son after him, and I thought that was really cute. I really liked that. And then I think that I was wrong on that. I thought that Leroy was gonna die. I was like, maybe I'll write this down to prove if I was correct, and I was wrong. Leroy did in fact live, which I'm glad. It was I wrote it down when him and Taniel were getting shot at by the military. I thought that he was either gonna get killed by the military or that Pennywise was gonna kill him, and neither happened. So, but I am so sad that Taniel died. I really liked Taniel. I thought that he was we didn't see him a lot, but I thought that he was an interesting character in the fact that it's like he's, young in the fact that he goes off and does stupid shit, like spying on military bases and then getting arrested for it, but his intentions are so good. Like he's grown up hearing the story about Pennywise and the monster in the forest and what he can do to try and protect those he loves and keep it at bay, and he knows the military's up to something. So I loved that about him. Or that the first chance he got in the sewers, he fucking booked it. I was like, yes. Let's go. I really liked Hale, so I'm so sad that he's dead, and I'm so sad for Rose, because I also really liked Rose. I thought she was a really interesting character, and then straight after that, fuck yeah, Francis dies. Because he's so stupid. He's like, look at you. I'm gonna set you free. And Pennywise just looks at him and goes, didn't I try to kill you one time? And then turns into that character, and Francis freaks the fuck out. And I was like, what were you expecting? What were you expecting? This is a cosmic horror god that can turn into anything. He's a shapeshifter. Of course he's gonna turn into that thing you were super scared of when you were a kid. Like, no shit. And then he dies, and I was like, that's what you get, bastard. So, I was so glad about that. And then I really liked Rich's funeral. I thought Marge's eulogy was really, really cute. I loved that Rich was, there with them, and then Dick talked to Rich's parents being like, you feel that hand on your shoulder, that is your son's hand, and I thought it was really cute. I thought the messaging of it was really cute and stuff like that, so I really liked that. And then I wrote down Dick's famous last words, how much trouble can a hotel be? I laughed so hard when he said that. He was like, yeah, how much trouble can a hotel be? And I was like, a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. I was like, you're gonna learn how much trouble. I'm assuming this is book Dick Halloran, so he doesn't actually die at the hotel, but I was like, a lot of trouble. So, and then I had to write this down because I didn't realize it until Rose offers Leroy and Charlotte the farm, that Will is probably Mike's parents, Mike's dad. I had to look it up. I was like, what's Mike's last name? It's Hanlon, and I was like, I don't pay attention to people's last names, so that's partially on me. The Marge thing they purposely revealed, and I guess in a way this is straight up confirming, and we get at the beginning of the show that Teddy is related to Stanley, that's his uncle, I'm pretty sure. Because I think he also mentions that his uncle died when he was a kid in the movies. I don't quite remember. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I watched the It movies, and I've never read the book, so I would like to after this, though. But yeah, it took me way too long to, I had to look it up. I was like, what's Mike's last name from It? And it's Hanlon. And so I was like, okay, so Will is Mike's dad, which means that he died a horrible death, which I'm not excited about now, considering the fact that he already almost died in a burning building, and now we have him actually dying in a burning building. So that's not a fun thought that I want to go away with, being like, yeah, it's Mike's dad, and now we know how Mike's dad dies too. I don't want to think about that. I love Will, and now I know that Will is gonna die a horrible, horrible burning death. I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. So, there's that. I was just like, it was an interesting revelation, and then I was like, fuck, now I know how he dies, and I'm not happy about it. So, there's that. And then, I have a stupid comment of Ronnie when she's in the car, eating the lollipops, and I was like, that's too... Okay, she has 2 lollipops, and this could be a weird gripe. If they were both the same flavor, I'd be fine with it. But they're 2 separate flavors, and that's psychotic behavior. I was like, you don't consume 2 separate flavored lollipops at the same time. That's psychotic behavior right there. I was just like, no, no. And then from the very end, now we know what happened to Beverly's mom. I was not expecting to see Beverly, but now we know what happened. She killed herself. So, probably because her husband's a fucking awful human being. So, there's that. But yeah, those are all the thoughts that I wrote down. I didn't write a lot about, like, the actual, like, fighting with Pennywise. I was just sort of watching that part. I thought it was really cool how it was done. Weird thought is, I'm like, once Pennywise disappears, doesn't that mean that all the freezing will go away? So they all just, like, get trapped in this river afterwards? I kept thinking about that. I was like, when the ice melts, will they still be on the river? It was a weird thought that just kept bothering me throughout it. I was like, what's gonna happen when Pennywise leaves and the ice melts? Well, obviously they're all fine because they're all still alive, but it was just a random thought that I kept having. But I did really like this episode. I thought it was a really good way to end it. It's like most of the kids, rest in peace, Rich, live. You know, they sort of, in a way, like the Losers Club, you know, they move on a little bit with their lives. We don't really see what happens with Lily, unlike the other kids. It's like we know who's Mike's dad. We know that Marge is gonna be Ridge's mom, and she talks to Lily about it, but it's like we just sort of like leave Lily. I mean, she gets a little bit of closure with her dad. Like, she finally sees her dad's grave, which is really, really nice because they revealed at the beginning of the show that even after, it had been like a year since her dad died and she still hadn't visited his grave because she was too scared to do it. So, like, I'm glad that she now has the courage to do that. So I'm very happy for her for that. So I thought that was really interesting. I really liked how it ended. I loved the scene where, like, Pennywise's face keeps, like, peeling back to show other forms that he's taken on, and I thought that was a really cool thing. I was hoping for Spider Pennywise, but I will take Bat Pennywise. I still thought that was cool. I just really liked the show overall. I thought it was a really cool show. I still didn't care for the military plot. I think towards the end I liked it a bit more in the sense that it sort of, that with the Hank Grogan plot sort of brought in the fact, and I do like this about horror plots, is that humans are always scarier than whatever supernatural thing is occurring. It's like this military group and this white mob is going to be way scarier than Pennywise. Like, Pennywise shows up to these horrible things. Yes, he will kidnap and he will kill kids. Like, he just kidnapped an entire school. But it's, to me, not as terrifying as a military wanting to weaponize a cosmic god to try and create peace throughout the US, or starting a mob to use as an excuse to kill one singular man who may or may not be responsible for a death. It's, in that sense, like, that will always be more terrifying to me than this cosmic god. And I think that's just because, like, in our real world, it's like these two things with, you know, the military and the mob have happened. Like, these things, well, besides the military using a cosmic god, as far as I know, they're not using any cosmic gods. But, like, these things are happening. Like, the military up to some shit, and, like, mobs attacking people of color for, like, one human being, and then attacking a whole group of people completely unjustified. Like, that scary shit has occurred. Meanwhile, there are no such thing as cosmic gods. So I'm not as scared as this thing, and I just thought it was really interesting, and I liked that part of it where it's just like, that will always scare me more. It's like, I thought that the gross birth scary scenes were just disgusting. I'm like, I don't want to see that, but it wasn't as bad as like me getting to the end of episode 6 and being like, I actually kind of don't want to watch the next episode because I really don't want to see what this group of white people is going to do at the speakeasy. And it just sort of comes from that, where I was like watching it with like my head in my hands just going, I don't want to see this, but it's like, it's these are actual things that did occur. So it's like, and It is not subtle with that. It's sort of like with It Chapter 2, where they just start off with a straight up hate crime against a queer character. It's like these are actual things that occur, and it's incredibly unfortunate, incredibly heartrending to see. But, in terms of horror, I think it works with that, where it's like this is a show about a god that scares and eats children, but nothing is more terrifying than this mob of white people attacking a speakeasy full of people of color. Like, that will always be more terrifying to me. But I thought that was really interesting. Overall, like I said, I really liked the show. I thought it was really good. It makes me really, really want to watch the It movies again. I need Richie Tozier to make me happy again. But I really liked it. It's, you go into It expecting it to be a little bit of a downer just because it's about kids dying, and I'm in a way a little desensitized to that because I watch a lot of horror. I think the only time I've watched a horror movie with a kid dying that was like maybe a little too much for me was Mike Flanagan's Doctor Sleep, because that killing scene went on for so fucking long. But other than that, like, I'm just so desensitized to it that instead I'm like, how are the kids gonna die? But I thought this show was really cool. Like I said, I felt a little too edged by Pennywise because they really just kept teasing him, which I found frustrating. I think that's just because I went in expecting so much Pennywise, and I honestly didn't get a lot. I'm glad that we got what we did, but I do wish that there was more Pennywise to it. But yeah, I really liked this season. I'm assuming it's a one and done. I doubt they're gonna make another season just because it ended the way that it did. Unless it would be fun to sort of make a season about the other horrible things that have happened, like maybe one episode per terrible thing that's happened in Derry. I would watch that. I would inhale that. I think that would be really cool. I don't think they're gonna do it though, but I did just really like it. So yeah, let me know if you've seen It Welcome to Derry and what you thought of it. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Bye bye.